I want to do something like this. So we have these different questions. One question is about a Jewish war. Milchemes Hashem is the Rambam's language that he uses for all Jewish wars. Maybe from Jewish wars too, who knows. Wars in the name of God. Or wars of God, which are two different things. So that's one question. And did we discuss this? No, we didn't. We've seen that the Rambam definitely, in Hilchos Melachim, throughout Hilchos Melachim and Milchemes, tries to present every Jewish war, and therefore every king who fights Jewish wars, as fighting the wars of God. And there's a very famous problem with this, which is that, okay, maybe if you're doing a real jihad to impose the correct belief on some population, we could pretend that that's God's war.
John Hercules.
What?
John Hercules.
Yeah, for example. Or if there's a real... Well, you could think of the Chashmonaim, right? Hanukkah. The people. This is later, but you could think of the defensive side of that, right? If Yechanan, Matasir, whoever, come and rise against people that are not allowing them to, to worship God or to work with the correct kind of system of belief or the correct kind of system of society, then you could see that as a war in the name of these ideals, in the name of whose purpose is that. Okay, that's okay. The problem is that there's explicitly something called Milchemes Reshus, which is just about, the Rambam explicitly calls that the king seeking glory or something like that. And yes, we could say all kinds of answers to this basic problem. You could have things like, maybe that's just something he had to say because it's in the Mishnah, but it doesn't really believe in it. Or maybe there's some other way. But the more fundamental issue here is, if you want to actually understand this, we have to go back to understanding what the point of there being a Jewish kingdom, or really more broadly, a Jewish people, or Jewish nation is, right? Because the concept, the wars, or the what kind of effort that you have to expend in order to establish that, is what we're thinking of when we think of this being God's war, or B'Shem Hashem. And
You say even though,
or another way you could say it's something like, what about a war that is just, so Milchemes Reshus is one extreme case of the problem, where you say, well, maybe this war's literal official goal is just the king should be known as a big king and have a larger territory under his control, and then it's problematic. Okay, at least in terms of what the motivation for the war is. And the Rambam explicitly says that Milchemes Reshus has this motivation of just trying to be a bigger king, having an empire. But I think that's an extreme case, because I don't think we should be so bothered by extreme cases. What we should be more bothered is, or we should be more interested in figuring out, is what it means what about a regular defensive war? What about, which are a large part of Jewish wars? What if we're just fighting to defend our lives or our independence? How does that connect to Yiddishkeit at all? But yeah, what about, the question is basically, what about Paroi? Was fighting Paroi has having to do, we could always have this, there's this two narratives about Yetzias Mitzrayim and about every other thing that concerns the Jewish people as a Jewish people, and their success and failures as a people, which is this about the people or about the religion, right? Remember, there's this concept of a religion. Nobody knows what that concept is, but the Rambam has this concept already. And if and there's in some, right, in some worlds there's a big problem. We have to try to make Yetzias Mitzrayim not about Jews not being enslaved, but about Jews, being able to be Eved Hashem, or some kind of spiritual something having to do with the religion, right? And in reality, it's not a story. If you read the actual story, it's not a story having to do with religion. It's a story having to do with who wins the war, who is in control over who.
Isn't there like in between you say it's becoming a nation?
Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
It means that if you're ruled by them, they're just them.
Oh, and therefore.
Okay, so then that's going to answer the question you asked before, like what does it mean to have people?
Yeah.
I heard him saying, but if there's a purpose, so this is...
Yeah, the well-being of it doesn't make a difference if it's winning a war or like creating something out of, I don't know, not without the question of war. That's what I'm saying. The question starts before the question of like, is this just for us to have more territory, or is this just for us, or is it just for us defending ourselves and so on? It's a question of what kind of thing is this when we have a people, and it's all stories of wars, just to be clear. Yitzchok Mitzrayim is a war. We discussed this once. And so on. All these things are basically wars. So there's not anything that's not a war. It means that there's not like some peaceful arising of a nation. That's not how things work or worked. I don't know. Maybe in the future. So yeah. Or another word case is like there's a famous. I'll give you another like framing. Just to get my question is that I'm trying to get out of here. Right? There's this. You're right. There's the famous Torah that says in the Ba'ach or somewhere, one of the Achronim, about Hanukkah and Purim. You know how why Hanukkah we don't, according to one Christian who was wrong, called Rav Meir of Rottenberg, but he claimed that on Hanukkah is not a mitzvah to make parties. He made that up. It's not true. Allah is not like that. But that's what he said, and the Torah and the Shachnarch like sort of brings that as if it's the halacha. And the theory of Rabbi, maybe the Taz, if you remember, one of these people was very famous dvar that everyone learns on Hanukkah is that on Purim was a question about the Jewish survival of their bodily survival, and that's why we have to eat because like we're happy. But on Hanukkah, it says in the Bach. It says in the Bach, Be'erech, it says in the Taz. There's different versions of this, but it says in these two people, and so that's why we have to eat. But on Hanukkah, it was not a question of the bodily survival, physical survival. It was a question of spiritual survival or avodas Hashem. So therefore, we have to do more avodas Hashem and not eat. That is the theory of the Bach, if I remember correctly. And all the Mashgichim very much like this theory. Okay. The Bayah with this theory, we discussed this Hanukkah and other variations, I think. It's one of the big questions. This is a vart, but it gets to the real issues.
The Hanukkah share last year was about it's against Goyim, it's not against other Jews.
Yeah, exactly. It must have to do somehow, but now I don't remember.
So it's saying it's a war. So it's a war basically. It's not against insidious.
Well, there was a war. It was a war. That's why the Hanukkah war is like the religious war, kind of. Right? Well, I tried to say that it was. It doesn't matter. The point is, this is the question. Like, is there? So the question is there, and there is. Like to some extent, there is. There are conflicts where the question is, right? There are religious conflicts and there are material conflicts. I mean, questions of resources. Those are two kinds of conflicts that exist. I mean, when or there are even like something like philosophical conflicts, right? If when the Rambam writes a book. To argue with certain interpretations of Aristotle or whatever, or to find a way within that, whatever his book is, that's like one kind of conflict. That's what we usually see as a ideological, or I hate this word, right? A philosophical conflict. And when the Ramban argues with what's his name about Christianity, that's religious. Yeah, it's like a religious conflict. And when we fight with Nazis, that it's a not religious conflict. I don't know what it is. Just a plain old war. And there's like a whole machloikas of like the Jews and the Hamas or and the Muslim how was it called? Muslim uprising, right? Hamas is the Islamic resistance movement. That's what Rish Tavis. And yeah, it's in Arabic. And like, is that so? What is that? Is that a religious conflict, or like if it would be a religious conflict, then why are they using guns? They should. You were in my class about this. Did I say this last week? Like if there's a religious conflict, you should be using arguments, or we should you bring your book, I will bring my book, and let's compare them. Isn't that how religious conflict should work? Isn't there something like very basically there's something very disharmonious with this whole concept of like a religion. That's really the problem where I'm getting at. Where there's a religious or philosophical conflict, and we'll have all these drushes on Hanukkah about the Yevonic ideology and the Jewish ideology and whatever. And like, how does that have anything to do with elephants and tanks? You know, they used to have elephants, and now we have tanks. How does it have anything to do? Like, it seems like It seems like there seems to be either people are lying. You could say people are lying to themselves. A religious conflict means, I think, the correct way to be a good person, right? That's what religion means.
Well,
I think the correct way to be a good person is X, and you say it's Y. So how do I win you, or how do we fight about that?
Well, it depends. If you think you should actually believe it, then you'd have to do the books. If you think I should hold a knife to you until you do it, then that's what religion is to me.
What's the hypothesis that it's a religious or philosophical conflict?
What?
Meaning, what would that mean to be if it's a philosophical or?
I would think. I mean, again, we have this thing called philosophy, where we have a lot of conflicts, all about fighting. And Plato was a wrestler. Remember?
Philosophical conflict.
Yeah.
Oh.
What is that supposed to mean? And it's not people. The Rambam said things like that about the wars of the Jewish ideal king. Forget about people. It's just an example.
To like triumph and
What do people mean when they say this? What is it? Well, what does it mean?
Doesn't he say more? Maybe you could say this for other people too. Isn't the Rambam usually talking about getting rid of just a negative? Like you're not necessarily here to convert someone, just to get rid of any negatives.
No, why? Of course it's different.
it's very simple.
That's why the Rambam. It's not true. That's why the Rambam's. You should read Hilchos Melachim, and you'll see that part of Hilchos Melachim is this mitzvah that he invented, which is. It's like some kind of cheshbon. If you read a few Gemaras, you might end up with this opinion, which is that the gods commanded Moshe, Hashem civilized Moshe to force all the nations to be Mekayim Zeh Mitzvah Nanach. And it's in the name of that obligation that you could all fight a war. All wars are based on this, according to the way that that's why the Rambam needs to get to this. All wars, even expansionist wars, are rooted in the ideal. That's a religion. I don't know if it's a philosophy. It's at least a religion. Yeah, I'm going to get to this. It's something. I mean, again, if you...
Maybe, but I'm just saying, maybe it's something that's worth taking a knife to someone and say, just do this. And it's worth without... I mean, if you would be able to convince him, I would imagine you would ideally want to convince him, but it would be worth doing, even if you make him do it by knife.
Again, but that's not a religious conflict. That's not a religious conflict.
Why not?
Or not a philosophical conflict at all. Because that's a conflict of who gets to force who to do what. That's what it is.
But,
you might have an excuse.
The reason why it's religious...
It's very hard to read that as a... Yeah, it's not religious. Nothing religious about it. It's very hard to read it as a godly war, as something...
I'm very simple.
Why not? If I say you're a destructive civilization,
I'm very simple.
Why not making you accept what I do, right? The point is, you're not making accept.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. There's no such a thing as negative only. Of course it is. That's liberalism. We have negative mitzvahs only. Of course it is.
Now what?
We're going to force you to believe correct things and so on.
We're not going to have to do 613, right?
It doesn't matter. That's details.
But my point is that
implementation
it's
details.
just to get you out of a negative.
No, it's not. I don't agree with that definition at all. There's no such a thing as just only society built on negatives is not the Rambam's idea. That's the liberalism idea. We're only not going to hurt each other. We're going to pretend that could work without having a positive idea of what good is.
Well, he has a.
No, we're going to force you to do and believe the correct things, and we'll even believe that there is no way to make people do the correct things without having the correct beliefs. That's why we have this whole concept of correct belief.
But they don't have. The Zionists don't have any correct
Who?
beliefs. For those 7 mitzvahs are not.
Of course they are.
There's no positive belief there.
Of course there is.
What's the positive
belief? No. This is a theory. Not true. Of course.
What's the positive
belief in God and not of it.
It's not part of the 7.
Of course it is. Of course it is. No, of course it is.
So why is that one of the 7?
Yeah, it definitely is. I don't care about numbers. Of course it is. Of course it is. And of course it is. And not only that, they have to believe it. You know the Rambam's all these chiddushim about this. Of course it is. I disagree. Of course it is. This is not true. No, of course it is.
Strange that that's missing.
No, it's not. No, it's not strange at all. You have to understand. Okay, you have to get to the whole thing. It's not missing. It's not missing. The Rambam doesn't understand it to be missing at all. Doesn't understand it like this. It's a nice title. It doesn't understand like that, and it also doesn't mean that in the way he thinks. But no, I disagree with this. No, that's not true. Anyways, in any case, that wouldn't be a religious conflict. That would be something like very basic, like and it gets back to something like self-defense. And for that, we could have something else, and not. It's very hard to call anything like that a wars of the gods or a war of God.
Why not? If you're defending yourself and you consider yourself.
Thank you very much. Everyone considers himself. That's useless.
Why is that useless?
Because everyone considers them not being bothered with what God wants. I mean, that guy who fights back, he's also fighting in the name of God, right?
Of course it is.
No, come on. No. One thing with religious wars and all any war that you want, any ideal that you want to take something out of being just two ants fighting for who controls the anthill, is that only one side can be right. If both sides are right, then it's not that.
No, I'm not saying both are right. They both think they're right. That's all. I didn't say they were both right.
Well, in what sense are they more? Is one side not right just because it happens to be?
Because their God is not a God.
What does it mean? It's not. What does that even mean? Who cares? But you're not even doing anything about that.
No, once I can make a simple mistake, right?
What?
They're mistaken. Yeah. They're mistaken.
That's not fair.
Their God is. Let's say the God is fighting for the right. They're wrong, right?
No,
So they're going to call them to fight.
No. That doesn't work. That doesn't work.
I'm saying, can you have a war where both sides are wrong?
No, all wars are the ones where both sides are wrong. All regular wars, meaning wars in the sense of not jihads, both sides are wrong. In the sense of there's no rightness going on at all, right? It's only a fight. It's the only thing that this fight can decide, a regular fight, is who is stronger.
Right,
which has nothing to do with being right.
Can I offer an example?
So both sides are wrong.
Both sides might be somewhat right.
No. No. I mean, if unless right is defined by being wrong or by being winning.
No. Right over here would be defined as going to war with the correct assumptions about what's going on, even though those assumptions are not.
No, you're not allowed to make mistakes. I don't let people make mistakes. Allowing people to make mistakes is doesn't work.
Right. No,
so that's why when you have two sides that think they're fighting Lacham Hashem, if one is mistaken, then I know they think that.
Right,
no, but then
calculated what God wants.
But then
so if both sides disagree,
I got the wrong answer in the calculator.
No, so then what kind of
God wants me to paint the whole town yellow.
No.
He didn't. He wanted me to paint it orange. I got it wrong.
No, I disagree with this.
Okay.
That's a very bad idea. Because then there's no God. Then both are wrong again. If there's a situation in which it's impossible to know, or some guy hasn't figured out.
1 second. There might be one person at one point.
So then why are you fighting with him? Why don't you explain it to him?
I'm saying maybe there's.
Why don't you just explain it to him?
I was saying different. I'm just saying.
Why don't you just explain it to him? I think that this is a very basic problem, and it's in the Kuzari. It declares this to be a basic problem in comparative religion, which is like the area of philosophy that he's working in, which is that two sides of a war both fast in the morning and pray to God, to their God, or even to the same God to win, and both of them can't be right, which means that both of these can't be working with the correct idea of what it means a God or what it means to fight in the name of a God. It's not enough to decide who is right. This whole system is wrong. It doesn't work. Because God has nothing to do with it. Or rightness has nothing to do with it. Whoever is stronger is going to win. We're back to square one, to the ants.
First of all, maybe there's correlation between being right and winning.
Maybe not.
Because maybe if you have the right God, you understand the world. It'll be a better fight.
I don't understand.
Yeah, maybe.
You're saying that this comparison problem is that both are using the same methods, and praying the same direction, and one of them has to have something wrong with the entire model. Is that what he's saying?
I don't want to fight a war where you need to win to know that you're right.
Yeah, agreed. But that's not that's his question.
That's my question. I don't know whose.
Oh, okay.
I don't know who I'm speaking in the name of now.
I didn't understand. No, I didn't mean that. Whose question? That's the original question. Okay.
I don't get what the point. Like, this seems to be the point of many people. What is the point of saying, "Oh, this is not just a war. This is a religious war, and therefore we're right"? Well, no, I don't know. Like, why? What's it got to do? Maybe your religion is wrong now. Didn't help anything.
That's possible. So you should first of all convince yourself.
So deciding which religion is so again, who has more tanks? That's whose religion is right.
But maybe
that seems not a logical deduction, because there can be many reasons. There can be many reasons for people losing wars, which are not that their God is the worst God. I mean, at least I can think of many reasons. I have a proof because we're the religious people that lost the most wars in history, and we still think that our God is better.
Well, we're at a strong. Well,
We have an excuse. It's God punishing us. Thank you very much.
It's not going to make you automatically win every war.
So it's useless. So it's not the winning. If it's the winning, if the winning doesn't decide anything, then this war is not a God's war. It can't decide the question that you pretend that it's asking, right? This is fake. Isn't this very fake?
Well, maybe if you're on a much higher ideal than we've ever been.
I'm in a higher ideal. Again, this war where you lose and you slay. So a war is any war or any fight or any debate is something where there's two sides and one comes out right, and there's a possibility for one actually coming out right? Otherwise, it's just something else. I don't know, not something useful for us, right? Right? If I have now again, there's something called an intellectual debate. Intellectual debate is always based on the idea that this is premised on the correct arguments, which is a complicated thing already, but the correct arguments are supposed to win, right? Not because I have the better argument, which is a problem of rhetoric, right? But because I have the better, proof, because the actual knowledge or truth will appear by debating, and therefore both of us might in the beginning be mistaken, or one of us might be mistaken, or at least one of us might be mistaken in the beginning, but this process is a truth creating, a truth giving birth to truth process, right? That kind of war makes sense. That kind of machlekes makes sense.
It's definitely the most direct version of that.
Who?
It's
Then it makes sense. Then you could say let's say now if there's one God guy and one not God guy, then God, and God could win. Or it can be you say this is not stam a war, this is a war of God. Makes sense, okay. Because the reason he wins is because he is God, because he's correct, right?
Yeah.
Then that's a truth-yielding process.
Wars, I don't know, like we discussed
if the truth doesn't exist, then there's no wars of God.
What?
I don't remember what was last week.
No, last week we discussed at length that...
Depends how much correlation you think there is to truth and what things you'll do in the world and opinions. If you think
What did I
that
do last
your
week? I don't
truth
remember
can
anything.
lead down to opinions, then you might win somewhat more.
Of course, if it's just about who can find a better mushal or a better argument, I'm not talking about that. Of course.
No, that's not the question. The question is if this is an area of war, is a place of. Again, I think that specifically philosophical wars are a place where we can use this distinction between one side being correct and one side being incorrect. In other cases, it's just opinions, right?
In which case?
In a case of, let's say, fighting for who gets fighting over the 13 colonies or whatever. Right, is any side right? It's just opinions.
Right? Okay, so then it can't be the words of God, because God has at least something that's to do with truth.
Yeah.
If it's a realm of fake things, then it's useless.
There will be some level of correlation between being right and
So
there's not. I told you why not. Because losing a war is just because God punishing you. Thank you very much. Now it's useless again.
No,
Whoever invented this idea that you could lose a war because God is punishing you ruined the idea.
Well, maybe that means because you're not right. You're not as right as you think. That's what I would say. That's what the punishment is. You're not as right as you think.
That's not what it says in the Chumash. In other words, I told you this shtickle that I had already. So let's go back up something very simple, right? The simplistic, which I seem to have friends that like this theory, but it's just like babyish. The simplistic version of the words of God is something like this: God is on our side. Everyone has their own God. Like if we're like sort of some kind of pagans or some kind of polytheists, ask your friend how to be a good polytheist. And that was not what his class is. What's his name? Anyway, yeah, not the gods.
Your friend first.
Anyways. Anyways, I'm finding the words of the gods now. Anyways, if you're a good polytheist, which like many Mekabalim are in some way, then you could have this concept where like everyone has their God, and whoever wins, that's the God that comes out on the top. And the point of our words being the words of God are just because we belong to this God, or represent Him, or He represents us, or He works for us, or we work for Him, whatever it is. And therefore, when we win, it's us that wins, and when we lose, the team that loses. And this was the logic of Moshe and Yoshia and Shira Sazine, which was the old-fashioned Jewish war song, right? And it basically says this: God, we might be wrong, and it says in Tehillim, we're very wrong and we don't deserve anything, but you're going to be the loser if we lose, so therefore we must win. It's all about God winning. That's what it says in Shiras Hazina. It says in a whole bunch of other places. Moshe Rabbeinu, when there was an egel, he said, what are you going to do? Mitzrayim, you're going to lose. I mean, very nice, you're mad at me, but we're on one team and you're going to lose. So therefore, you got to continue with the project. And Yeshua said, Matas l'shimcha gadol. Everyone will say that you're a loser. Okay, that was a very... Who?
Moshe Rabbeinu should be different.
Moshe Rabbeinu said this more than once.
He would be different because he was actually fighting with them. That imagines people were not right.
Wait, I'm telling you, what?
He was trying to win in a moment that these people weren't right.
Yeah. Not your pshat that were the right people, the old-fashioned pshat, the pagan pshat, but that doesn't, again, the whole point is that you don't have to, right? The whole point of this logic is, which is Moshe and Yeshua and Yecheskel's logic, is that we don't have to be right, we don't have to be tzaddikim for this.
He blames all punishments on us.
No, but with his whole idea of God having to win in the end is because we don't have to be right, we just have to be on God's team, and there's such a thing that different people belonging to different gods somehow, otherwise this doesn't work. And therefore, the people that belong to the correct God, or at least the strongest God, they have to win because their God has to win. Okay, this is the level 0 theory. Problem with this theory is that later, or at the same time, I don't know, somehow people came up with the opposite theory, which says that when you lose, it's because God's punishing you. So it's not God losing, it's you losing. Now we don't really have a good way to tell God this tefillah of Mataz L'Shem Chagud. I don't know how it's supposed to work after that. I know there's all kind of complicated theories to make these two things work together. But as far as I can tell, they contradict each other. And they contradict each other. What it does for our purposes is that you lose. And also I don't believe that there's a bunch of different people with a bunch of different gods. So, or maybe I do, who knows. Anyways, but if you don't believe in that, then you lose the ability to say this. Because it's just God, like to let the best man win. Maybe the best man was Nebuchadnezzar, so he won. That was what Yirmiyah said, and sometimes Yecheskel also, and other people. And therefore, God always wins. So there can't be wars in the name of God. Or there could be, but God is on all sides. And whoever wins, that's the one who God made it win, and therefore, it's not really a war of God, right? God might be the one that decides who should win, according to who's a bigger tzaddik, or a lesser risha, or whatever calculation he has. What?
God's outside the war, not in it.
Yeah, exactly. Because he can't lose. If you can't lose, you're not in the war, right? If God can't lose, then he's not in the war. If there can't be a Chil Hashem, if there can't be, which there can't be, since all kinds of excuses, since we used to have this belief in times of some time, I don't know. This is like a history that who knows if it's true, but it's the one story that people tell. Right? We used to have this belief that if we lose, God loses. And then we lost majorly, over and over again, and God lost according to that. And for some reason, well, I have a shot in this, but for some reason, we didn't accept this. We couldn't accept defeat in the name of our God. This is how monotheism started. When God lost the war. And since we realized, wait, but how could God lose a war? All right, most people, he was never fighting the war in the first place. So now we don't have the God's war in that literalist sense anymore. Make sense? So we can't do that anymore. Or maybe we could if you go back to believe that and you figure out some sophisticated way of being a polytheist and it's still kosher, then maybe you could. But assuming that you don't do that, maybe we should do that. That's a different share. But in this share, we don't do that. So we're stuck with a baya. How could you have a... How could we be words in the name of God? I can't. End up with just everyone being in the same pot, and whoever is right wins, and whoever is wrong loses, and maybe whoever has a better idea of God, somewhat, you could try. That would be like weak excuses. Okay, so I don't know. I think that's the question. There's a baya. I think there's a baya. So now something like this. I just wanted to read or talk about this letter that Rambam wrote to Yemen, where I think he gives a story to try to talk about this question in a very specific way, right? He has all these theoretical books, and this is a practical work, right? It's written to answer specific Jews' questions in a specific time, in a specific place, and it has to be arguments that work for them. It can't be just arguments that are right, and so on. And he says it gives a story that's like this. Okay, so let me think about this. Yeah, so let me tell you the story. I don't know. Does my question make sense? It's a good problem. I think it's a serious problem. There's many other ways of formulating the same problem, but it all comes down to the same problem.
I'm just saying, like what I'm trying to get at is that I agree with the question. So therefore, there's a correlation between being right and winning, but it's not absolute because you're right, because you're removed from the actual truth, right? You're just like fighting in the name of something, whatever. You have a better idea, and maybe it will give you some better ideas, but it's not going to be absolute anymore. Like that's exactly why there's only some level of correlation, and it's not perfect, right? Because you're actually removed from your philosophical argument. The same way you're more removed and you're using a lot of rhetoric in such an argument that the right person might even lose. So as you move away from that actual truth-seeking argument, there might be correlation. You would think that people who are right, even with rhetoric being used, still wouldn't debate
maybe
more,
there's
right?
opposite correlation.
What?
Maybe there's reverse correlation.
Well, that will depend on last week's year.
No, like I don't know. Last week's year it said that there isn't a correlation.
I know.
Or at least that I don't buy it so quickly.
I know. I know. That's last week's year. That's what I'm saying. It depends on that.
I mean, it seems to be. It seems, and not only. I mean, it seems to be that in this, at least in the way this world of darkness works, the more lies you say, the more easy you win. I mean,
on a small scale, it's definitely true. The question is on some general, larger scale.
Yeah, the arc of history bends towards justice. Sure. Does it?
That's just saying. I'm saying.
Why would it?
I'm saying the arc of people who are trying to. I'm saying. No, I'm not saying that. No, I'm definitely not saying that. I'm saying that the arc of people who actually have.
That's definitely what all the people that believe in a Messiah believe. It's not Martin King didn't invent.
No, but I would put it more into. He's just saying it as like just some general sense of just like history, like floating. I'm talking
no, it's based on something.
The arc of people fighting wars when they're correct.
Yeah, that sounds to be a very weak way of saying. I know it's from the Rambam in his letter on the stars, but it's a very weak theory. It's not true.
I could read this.
No, I don't think it's true at all.
Because it's last year.
That way of putting it is very bad. Because that way doesn't have God in the truth or God in it at all. It just says something like very secondary, which is like, if you will seek truth, you will also, by accident, seek to be a good warrior, which is sort of not really how things work. And also, like, what if you're just the truth is that you're just a loser? It's very complicated. I think it's very complicated. If it's not really clear that that's correct. I mean, yeah, no. Most it's not. It also like maybe the. Yeah, I don't know. It's too easy. No. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know. I found a framework. I don't know if it solves anything. I just found a framework in this letter, and I want to discuss this framework, and maybe we can do something with it. So these people from Taiman call Rabbi Maimonides, and they tell him that he's a big rabbi. He wrote these great books, or he's in the middle of writing them, and he's such clarity and everything. And they tell him that they have a problem. They have a bunch of problems, and these might be a bunch of distinct letters. Nobody knows really the connection between all the things in the letter. But their problem is very much the problem of the Jews in exile. Nothing new. The Rambam says this to them, that their problem is nothing new, but there is very specific and a very acute sense, or very acute instance of the problem. And the problem is something like this. We're big losers. We're being crushed by the Muslims in their case. Both, like materially, we don't have an army and they do. We don't control the country and they do. We live in someone else's land, someone else's government. And now they also seem to be interested in getting us on their team. They want us to convert to their religion. Sometimes they say it explicitly, sometimes they just bother us until we do it and so on. Not entirely clear what the real situation on the ground was, but that's how the Jews feel for sure. Like, these people are stronger than us, both, militarily and governmentally and socially in every way. And they're also, they also seem to have a religious claim to us. They at least want us to convert to their religion. And they would like to force us some days. Maybe they are forcing us or they're pressuring us, something like that. That's number 2. And number 3, they even seem to have arguments. Sometimes they have the Torah says that Muhammad will come, all kinds of gematrias and stuff. You're laughing, but these are serious arguments, okay? I don't think we should laugh. I think that we're doing ourselves a great disservice by thinking that all these arguments are jokes. They're jokes in the sense of like pshat, yeah. But like Rabbi Ibn Kaspi said, your Mashiach is also not on the pshat. So, the bayat. And I told you Ibn Kaspi's thing. He said that he doesn't know what we caused the problems of the Christian arguments for ourselves because he read the Tanakh. It doesn't say anywhere that Mashiach is going to come. At least after the Second Temple. All of them are talking about Bayis Shani, which is what we tell the Christians when they come with their arguments. And then we came up with this drash that says no. So why can't they come with their drash? And we're stuck arguing who has a better medrash, which is a serious issue. I don't think it's which is why like this question of messianic signs, from the Bible and from the history, is a serious question. And all the Jews that ever discussed this question, nowadays we have a whole different discussion of Zionism, but all the Jews that discussed this with Christianity and with Islam in some ways were doing a serious work. They were not just like arguing with stupid missionary discussions like modern missionary fighters seem to think. These are questions that bothered them, basically. Sometimes the Rambam, whatever, sometimes they would not themselves go to sleep not knowing what the answer is. It's serious. It's not just propaganda and dumb arguments. But anyways, that's what I'm saying. So number 1, we're crushed. Number 2, we're religiously pressured. Okay? Number 3, we're philosophically pressured, right? Or at least theologically pressured. In other words, we have arguments. We don't know if we're right. We don't know what's...
Okay, you can understand the distinction between 2 and 3?
Yeah, the 2 is really Gzeres Shmad. I'm trying to give it a formulation, but it's Gzeres Shmad. They're going around saying us, you should not keep the Torah. They're trying to force us, whether by pressure or by law or by,
So number 1 is the circumstances that gave way to 2.
Yes, exactly.
There's these premises, right?
Yeah. These are the questions. Yeah, these are the questions of the Jewish people. Since our God started losing. Okay. Number 4.
When did he win?
When did he start winning or stop winning? Yeah, Yitzias Mitzrayim. At least that our religion was based at one point that God's wins. His few battles that he won. Yitzias Mitzrayim, maybe in general, Yitzias Mitzrayim is a broader concept, but Yitzias Mitzrayim up to David, where he got us into the land and gave us our sort of state or whatever it was, or 2 of them. Those were relatively successful in some sense or whatever. The big time God lost was the double exile of the first Beis Hamikdash, right? One of them he entirely lost, which is the Shvatim, which are the people that actually stopped being Jews, as far as anyone knows. And the second one was the Davidic one, where the salvage operation of that God is still going on, But that's what we're talking about. Since then we've been trying out other theologies than the one that God has to win in, right? And like we see, this is why we go around saying we're the best, because the other people whose gods lost actually stopped existing. Not the literal people, but the people as a people in the cultic sense, right? In the ancient sense, right?
The Romans.
No, exactly. The Romans' gods stopped existing, which means the Romans who worship Jupiter don't exist anymore. Well, the one that won them was Jesus, but that's a different discussion, not us. Yeah, I know the TV show, but the problem with the kasha is not. No, that guy's argument is a stupid argument because the Italians are not the Romans. But the real question, if you would be a real guy, you would say, well, why the Romans don't exist anymore? It wasn't because of the Jews. It was because of a Jew. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, but okay, maybe it wasn't the name of our God. That's why the Ram has this whole thing with this being some kind of Mashiach. How did I get to this? What I'm saying is something else. So no, what I'm saying when Sancheiriv and conquered Moav or whatever it was, Moav God stopped existing. He died, and nobody worships him anymore. And those people don't exist. Well, those people literally exist, but their biology exists. But they're people as a people. In other words, their God actually lost the war. Our God lost the war, and we decided to keep going somehow. This is the question that we talk about Purim, we talk about Hanukkah too, because Hanukkah is one instance of like this God that kept going, actually winning the war. That's really the story of Hanukkah. And then we have to figure out what kind of war did he win, and to what extent did he win, and is this bring us back to the old God, which just has to win the war? Not really, because once you lost once, it's not, he can't lose anymore. Okay, he won, that's a nice thing, but it's not in the kind of winning where you could lose. Maybe that's why we shouldn't eat on Hanukkah.
Maybe he wins in Aristotle's sense, where he just keeps losing but for eternity.
Therefore,
that's the God that never loses completely. Only loses 80%. That's the winning.
I don't know. Anyways, this is a big bayah. Okay, so that's, anyways, how did I get to this? That's the third question. The third, I don't know how I got to this. The third question is the philosophical question, okay? And the fourth one was about Mashiach, right? Which is not really connected with any of the previous questions, but I'm pretty sure, and this is something that needs to be, I don't have a good theory of it, but I'm pretty sure that the their question was, there's this guy that claims to be Mashiach. What do we do with him? And the Rambam says, put him in jail. He's crazy.
Well, of course, isn't that how it's connected? They basically asking, is our way out to believe it's Mashiach?
Right. Now, why wouldn't it be the way out? Serious question. Why not?
Why, yeah? If you're supposed to tell me why, yeah, then
well, why, yeah, would be, because what else should it be? Like, what else should we do?
Try to develop a good leader who can help you.
Well, how do we know that leader is bad? You see, the Rambam, I don't actually know. Like, how did the Rambam know that guy wasn't? It wasn't? Well, definitely, actually wasn't.
If a guy who you would say is just he's a Meshuggah, probably not making any good claims. He's not saying like, I'm just assuming based on a little bit that's there, is that he's not making any claims other than I'm just Meshuggah. What is that? That's not a claim. That's just saying like, okay, what's your plan?
I would think that. I think something like that. But so, in other words, is the answer to wait for Mashiach? It is somewhat of the answer, but not this Mashiach.
I'm just saying, develop a good leader. Don't worry about Mashiach. How about you develop a good leader who has good ideas to help you?
The Rambam doesn't actually say that. But just to be clear, that's something that the Rambam might want to say in Hilchos Melachim. It's not what he says in Igeret Teiman. What he says in Igeret Teiman is, your guy is bad, he's just crazy.
But the point is that he doesn't even claim
and then he says, but he says, he doesn't say the real one is one that's more successful. He says the real one is one that's like magic, basically. The smartest person ever, and blah, 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 and this is not. It's complicated. It's not so simple what he says. I don't think you could always say he judged this to be a hopeless idea, and therefore, but I don't really know how he judged it to be a hopeless idea. So it's somewhat hard for me to understand. I mean, again, you could always say, from his version of reality. Okay.
We weren't strong enough. I don't know. That's fine.
Well, nobody starts off strong enough. You start somewhere. I mean, what's wrong?
Yeah, but
I don't really get it.
I think you gotta rally a few more troops.
How many? This guy had troops. Just to be clear, he did.
I don't know. It's not.
I don't know how many.
How many? Right.
So the Rambam says that's to start in Israel. Maybe we'll start. I don't know. These are all like.
You gotta get the band together.
I don't sort of based on the circumstances.
Okay,
obviously,
if
like
one of these,
there's no chance of any success.
Told me it's Mashiach. I wouldn't believe him. He's gotta live in New York City. He has to be normal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's just the guy has to have an argument.
I don't know a lot about Mashiach, but I know that he's not in Teiman.
If he's trying to train troops, that would be one thing. But
he did try. Yeah. Most of the Mashiach Shekas didn't just say that they were
he was Mashiach, at least he was a good fighter. He was good at it.
I think.
He did a good
but
job.
also, there were people in that. Was it a war that had a hope of winning? Not clear, right?
Okay, that's better than clear.
As best as
what are his
possible,
chances?
Roman Empire for a small group of people, yes.
It's better than a death wish.
Okay. Anyways, kicher. So these are the problems. So the Rambam basically, let's take the fourth question out of this question, because his answer is ignore this. This is a dumb idea. It's not going to work. The real Mashiach is something different. Not this one. You're saying the problem is that his real Mashiach is not so different. That's why I'm asking this question. But okay. But let's take him at his face value. The real Mashiach must be smart. This guy is dumb. He says everyone should give all their possessions to charity, and that doesn't make sense because then the poor people will be rich and have to give back. That's such an amazing argument. Like, what's the point? Yeah. Okay. Like, it doesn't even quote, like you say, I'm Oretz because I'm a Vaz, but it just doesn't make sense. Like, the guy's crazy. Like, what do you plan? Okay. So, anyways, so this is not Mashiach. So therefore we have to answer the first three problems, right? And the Rambam says things like something like this. So he gives them a history lesson. And he says that you have to know Jewish history and like my form of Jewish history, right? My form of Jewish history is like this. Number one, he literally says as an history, which is something that shows me, and all the Rambam's histories are more rationalist than empirical. You know, they're always trying to give a framework more than the story. But I have not found anyone that really takes apart this framework that he's giving here. So I don't know. I'm trying to. Maybe there's someone. I'm sure there's someone, but I don't know who it is, or if he knows what he's talking about. That hypothetical guy. So he says something like this. He says, number one, since there's been Jewish people, there's been people fighting with them. In the most simple sense, like he gives examples, and he has a list. Amalek. So you see the story start after Yetzias Mitzrayim, after there are, how does he say? After Matan Torah, his story has to start, because his story always starts with Matan Torah, right? Mizman, he says something like this. From the day, he talks about Matan Torah first, right? In any case, he says from that day, because let's forget about the story about Matan Torah being the truth and everything. Okay, we'll get to that as the part of the philosophical argument. But from the day, right, start from number one. He explicitly numbers these and gives it in a historical order. So number one is, since they were Torah, since there were Jews that had the Torah, right? So it says Mitzrayim, Matan Torah. There were people, the other nations were jealous and evil and tried to destroy us. And he says, and he calls them since that time, and he says this never stopped. Since the day that God came and gave us this Torah, which, how does he really understand this? Okay, but since that day, there were evil people that couldn't stand that. Yeah, so he's thinking of something like that, but this is not quoting Gemara. This is his real story. There were always people who, and he literally says there was, and every evil king or evil person, his first and last wish was to destroy the Torah. He literally says the Torah, to destroy the Jewish Torah by the sword. This is a very funny thing, because it's not clear why would anyone want to do that. You have to remember, he says kinna, but it's problematic, because kinna, the way the Gemara usually says it, is something like, we're the only one that has that can have a Torah. And the Rambam doesn't think that, can't think that way. But he does say we are the only one that do have one. And he says clearly, V'nigla, we have this Miga Gadol. He says that Miga Gadol is something that causes jealousy. And the Rambam's explanation of Tzadikim is that everyone can see that this society works, and that's why some people want to destroy it. They want to destroy it because it has a Torah, not in the sense of having a Torah, in the sense of having a society, a just society, a perfect society. And there's people that hate that for some reason.
Well, I think one of the arguments would be is that why, if it's successful to everyone, why is there a special group of people? And the answer is there's going to be some level of disconnect between potentially what those people could do and what actually they will do.
Well, that's not what he's saying. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that it worked. Because if it doesn't work, well, what's the point? Why would anyone do that?
Other people. Your question was they potentially could also have a Torah.
Yeah, they should.
True. But the Mice, they don't.
So what are they? So he claims,
they don't.
And he gives a list. So listen, I don't know. I don't like his whole in all these three people. He ascribes intentionality to these people in a way that seems to be unrealistic. He has the list: Amalek, Sisera, Tzancherev, Nebuchadnezzar, Titus, and Reunis. Right? These are all the people that he knows. He skipped someone important. You'll notice this goes through his. Who did he skip? Yes, because he doesn't put Antiochus into this category. We'll see him in a different category. This category has all the people who had basic just wars with the Jews. Right? Amalek doesn't have anything. And Sisera was just a guy that. And Sancherev, Nebuchadnezzar, which are the two destroyers of the first temple, Titus and Reunis, which are the two destroyers of the second temple. Right, Titus for the Beis Mikdash and Reunis for Bar Kochva. This is very broad view of history. And all of these people, they try to destroy the Torah and the people of the Torah, people who are doing the Torah. Right, and he doesn't say they want to destroy us because they deserved it. You see, this is not the deserved it principle. This is and also not the other principle, which is they just hated our God or something because they have a different God. It's a very Rambamistic principle. What? the worst Gzeir is das also, but now we're talking. Yeah, okay. He's going to talk about that soon, but that's still, even that is, there's two ways where you can destroy the people. You can just kill everyone, or you can keep them alive and force them to not keep Shabbos. It's sort of the same thing. Well, he's thinking of it as the same thing for the most part in some context. We have to think of, that's what I was saying. He doesn't count.
That makes you from Romans to Italians, basically.
He doesn't count, right. He doesn't count. That's why Hadrian did these religious persecutions very explicitly. It wasn't the philosophical disagreement that he had, right?
Didn't change his philosophy, just change it.
Right. He just, it's a tactic, it's a war tactic, right? So, and that's number one. And the Rambam claims that they did it because they hate God. What does it mean they hate God? He gives a new interpretation of hating God. They can't stand there being a people, ashleichukum mishpatim tzadikim. And according to this logic, the more tzadikim we are, the more of such enemies there should be, right? And also Amalek was after Matan Torah. No, there's a bunch of things going on. Which is not, it's machlokes or something, I don't know. That's what he says. I don't know, it seems to me a very weird intentionality to ascribe to people. I don't even know if the Rambam would, really? That's why Sisera was against that? I don't know, that's what it says here. After he tastes B'tayim was for sure, the Shah is after Matan Torah. No, it was not. I mean, pretty explicitly not, right? Doesn't work. You can't make it?
There are any opinions that even say that.
No, it's not going to work, right? Because if feed them.
In the Sisra,
it wouldn't work.
In the Sisra Caesar
category? Yeah, Amalek, Sisra, Sanchayrev, Nebuchadnezzar, Titus, Adrianus. These are famous people, I mean, it's kind of, yeah.
There are those that say Titus didn't even want it.
Yeah, of course. Okay, well, he wanted to destroy the people. Maybe he didn't want to destroy the Beis Hamikdash.
It doesn't change it.
Okay, that's like a weird instance where we have like this guy who was his friend and whatever. But like, I mean, yeah, this is the Medrash, and I'm like, Chazal think like this, like in some sense. Chazal also think that it's because we sinned, which doesn't really work together with this. I don't know how to reconcile these two things, but
well, maybe you should think of it this way. Maybe you should.
That
this is what the purpose of these people are. Whether they want it for myself, just Romans are trying to fight the Parthians.
I mean, yeah. Why is Sisera fighting the Jews? I don't know. Why not? He seems to be a. No, Sisera was just the guy over there, and he was a general, right? Sisera is the wrong guy. He has to be Yovan, anyways. But he was just some local warlord. I mean, that was his territory. Like, it doesn't say. I mean, of course, the Veda talks about Melchemes Hashem. That's one of the big sources. But okay, because he says explicitly, we're fighting for the people of God and Ezra Hashem begiborim and some.
This is general saying things. They're saying something.
Yeah, because if he had all this religious rhetoric going on.
Right,
yeah.
him and you have it by Goliath.
But also, was that why? Does that kind of like go on
I don't think so. I'm just saying.
Is this the story that the Rambam is telling us here? Sancheiriv went on this campaign because he heard that in Judea there's people who have a good society, and he hated that. I don't know. It sounds like George Bush. They hate our freedoms,
No, come on. No, I don't.
That's not really.
I don't think that's what happened. I'm just saying. At least there's attributed some sort of rhetoric about it. Same with Goliath. Like, at least we have that.
I don't know how to reconcile this with the reality. I mean, it's a take. It's the take on reality.
Maybe you should.
Seems. I'm sure you should. Tell me how. I'm trying to.
It's a positive way to think about it. Whether because there's a kernel here that is always that does apply. Because that is true, you should always think about it.
And also, like, we always have this uniqueness bias. Like, are we the worst people that had this long list? I don't know. I mean, pretty sure that every nation has a long list of evil people that try to destroy it. I mean, nothing special. No. Again, I'm being evil here. You're not allowed to talk this like as a Jew, but like, come on. You have a nice list. Okay. And don't the Persians have such a list? Don't the Greeks have such a list? Does anyone not have such a list?
Well, any of them have been long enough to accumulate.
That'd be a location.
Okay. You have to survive long enough identity to accumulate such a long list, but what?
Might be a location thing. Whatever.
Okay, we live near.
But just also never seemed to really pose such a massive conquering threat, and still, I guess.
All these people are the real conquerors, right? I don't know.
Who's a real conqueror besides like David and
No, we're talking about the people that try to conquer us, right?
Right, just being conquered. It's like I don't know. Maybe it just occupied more space than I'm imagining.
No, I would just say it would just occupy a certain type of space.
It's like why, right?
Yeah, we live in the. I get it.
What the Moroccan said this already.
The
So we're here. Everyone's
the
around
geopolitical problem
They,
of
right
being
away
in the
they
wrong
said this,
location.
Look, everyone's around us. Like,
Oh, right.
This is right with explicit. They said this. This is straight up in the
Not
argument.
sure that they didn't. I don't
They
know.
said there's Amalek in here. Everyone's surrounded. That's what.
Like
they
if
say.
you'd be an
Not
isle,
everyone has this.
if you'd be an island like Britain, you would only have you still have a bunch of people trying to destroy you. I mean, not that often.
I don't know if it's caused by.
But also, it's the way you get the party. I'm saying it's the way you
No,
get.
I
Oh,
understand it, but I don't know. Like, come on.
I mean, we don't live in a world that Israel is the most central place, but it
Okay.
used to be much more central.
Anyways, I don't know. In any case, okay. Anyway, this is one kind of problem. Okay, I think that, but let's just add one important thing for the Rambam's way of thinking. He definitely does think that this is about the better society that the Torah created, and there are being threats to it. Forget about the intentionality. I think that's a waste of time to really talk about, because there's no such thing as intentionality with empires. Anyways, it's always the guy's trying to impress his girlfriend. Who cares what he's doing? What he's trying to do? But there's like it's a threatened thing, something like that. It's a threatened thing. Okay. And then he says like this. Then this is one baya. Second kind of person, and he probably thinks this is something that has arisen a little later in history, is the philosophers. He says this explicitly. The Chachmei Emes. And he gives 3 examples, which I do not know. I have no idea who he's talking about. But he says Syrians, Persians, and Greeks. Who these Syrians and Persians and Greeks are, I do not know. I really don't know. I mean, everyone. This is somewhat of a surprise because everyone always. Our Chanukah drushes like to talk about how the idea of the Yevunim being a philosophical threat is something later, and here the Rambam, I don't know what he's talking about, but he's definitely thinking of before Christianity. So he's thinking at least Second Temple period. And he's thinking of Syrians. I don't know who the Syrians, he means like people who speak Syriac. I don't know who that is. Persians, I again don't know who that is. He might be referring, some of my friends propose he might be referring to like the Zoroastrians who are mentioned in the Talmud as arguing with the, but that's also a little somewhat later. Yevunim, we know who Yevunim are. Who exactly of the Yevunim is he's thinking of as like trying to destroy the Torah with arguments. So that's his thing. There's first 2 groups are one people that are trying to destroy the Torah with arms, and the other one are trying to destroy it with arguments. I don't know who he's thinking of. He's not thinking about Antiochus. Antiochus is later. He's more of this first group or closer to the first group. He's not on the list, but he's thinking. I don't know. I mean, I know, of course, in the Rambam's times there were Yevunim and Parsim and Syrian that are saying this. Syrians are generally Christians. Persians, I don't know who they might be. Muslims, and Greeks are just philosophers. That's something, maybe it's a projection of some books that he read into some history. I'm not sure. Not sure what is going on here. Really don't. This is also Sadia language. You have to look in Sadigon who he thinks of these maybe. Because this Shtickle Torah is straight lifted from Sadigon. Because he says, he quotes this, what I'm telling you right now, in Amos V'des, because he says that both of these, now this is now I'm getting to his real point, which is why he gives this whole history lesson, which is to say that God has already promised us that none of these will succeed. And he brings a pasuk in Yeshaya, Kol kli yutzar alayich lo yitzlach, v'chol loshen tokim mitach lamishpat harshi'i. And this drash on this pasuk was Sadi's drash. That's why I'm saying that he's thinking of Sadigon's terms here. And Sadigon is definitely the one like fighting the wars. Right? He's an apologist. Clearly, he's fighting the wars of arguments. Right? He's not interested in the truth, which is the Rambam's criticism of him in the end of the first chelik of the Moira. But he's interested in fighting the war. And this is the Rambam using this formulation very clearly. Also, his drash on the pasuk, which the Rambam must have read in his book. And so God already promised that they can't win. And he says why? And he brings also the pasuk Yoshe Bashma Yitzchok, that whole capital Tehillim, which is that since he doesn't say exactly why, he says both someone who tries to destroy us with a sword, and both someone who tries to destroy us with arguments, God will make us win, because he says va'emes. Interesting, yeah, because we're the truth. He does have the truth being the reason we win. sometimes it says it's machloikas, and it says either he has a translation discussion. If it says v'Hashem yalig b'hem or v'emes yalig b'hem, because he has this pusik Hashem yalig loma, and then some translation it says v'emes yalig b'hem. But the Arabic word is al-Haq, the truth. But the truth was an Arabic name for God, famously. Al-Haq is one of the ways of saying the God. So this is nice.
Here also wants you to call God truth a few times, just didn't take off so
So much like it's
well.
Where?
Yeah, that's it. No.
Yeah, that's me. The Rambam used that. He liked it.
They did a launch as well, I don't think.
No, we don't say the truth as a name of God or as a kinah of God. Maybe Emes V'Yatzif is trying what? Doesn't make a difference. So he wants to do it. Start doing it. No problem. There was a famous Sufi, guy that said, "Ana al-Haq, I'm the truth. I'm God." That's one. What?
Oh, that's a famous. What's his name?
I forget the guy's name. Yeah, he was killed for it. So the point is that this is something like the truth will always win. Okay, because this is the truth. And then this is him helping the Jews. And then he says, we never, although we always win, we've always been struggling with these two groups, all the days of our government and some of the days of our gullus. So he's definitely thinking of. I don't know when we've had problems with arguments. Did you read in Tanakh? I mean, this is nice drash on Yeshaya, but that's not what Yeshaya means, right? Maybe it is. Who knows?
And by Shani definitely was a problem,
right?
People having arguments because of philosophy.
Yeah, I'm saying that.
Nah.
Think about stories.
You don't think that it was a problem?
What
What do you think the Tzdukim were saying? Did they say nothing? They had arguments.
He's not talking about tzedukah
No,
now.
I'm saying, but the Tzdukim were coming from something, all right? They weren't just like. It's not an internal.
I'm saying
I think to me it's very clear. It's not an internal fight.
The Hellenists
Right?
didn't
I
have
don't know. That's a theory of some people. Who?
The Hellenists didn't have arguments.
It's like a question of who has a better Torah. Yeah, but those Midrashim are later. Again,
They had
Earlier
some
they
ideas.
didn't.
those Midrashim are mostly okay. I see. I don't know if they were a real threat. Like, yeah.
I'm saying, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The Rambam probably thinks something like this.
It's not
Yeah,
enough to build a weak category in it.
this might be a projection, but I don't know. It's hard for me to get at this. Like, what kind of, something do we now do? Are there philosophical problems with religion nowadays? Is there a philosophical war going on? Are there people trying to destroy the Torah with arguments? Do you know any of such people? I don't know any of them.
The Torah people might not be
You
aware.
shouldn't do whatever you got.
The new atheists?
Yeah.
No, not this. No, much more subtle. Like people,
not a real
they don't
thing.
there's arguments happen that they don't even realize.
Okay, yeah, but that's already like Chutz Hashem,
What do you mean?
Who is this? Who is the guy trying to destroy the Torah with
Some
arguments?
view of human nature. People who have very bad views of human nature, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I
Which
consider
is very
the
There's
Derrida
that.
to be.
There's ideas of that
No?
religion should not have any.
He's trying to destroy everything.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
But by the way, for the Platonists, that's enough. That's exactly what you're supposed to look for. The one who says that to be is not to be, right? That being isn't being, right? When they go to the gates of what's the story in one of these I thought it was from one of
What's the story?
the story is that one of these Parmenides has the story or something in Plato's Parmenides. There's some story about this, no? Years after one of the commentaries on it, I think, where they go to the gate or something for the mistress of death or something, and they ask and the first thing that she asks them is like, okay, but the first thing you have to say is being. Does being exist? And you say being is, right? That's the first Neoplatonic assertion is that being is.
Yeah, but what's?
And there, this is being is not. So he's.
Yeah, I know. That's Parmenides' poem with the story of the ways.
Right,
Okay,
so I'm saying
but
I
don't know.
I'm going to
I think these things are happening without.
Yeah, but
without
okay,
face.
but
They
that's
don't
not
have faces.
okay. Exactly. Okay, so where he's trying to give them names and faces,
Last
right?
time there was a face, they were right. So
Damn, man.
years ago in Europe, they might have been right. That's the problem.
I hear, I don't know.
Last time there was a face to it.
That's like a story, like that
maybe
another one of the stories that we tell each other, like something like the word. I don't know. Okay, I don't know. Anyways, the Rambam's point is, and this is important to him apparently, and this is a tactic that he's doing. His point is it's important to him to put the arguments into the wars, right? Which is weird because like arguments are supposed to be people that don't know the truth. But if you do know the truth, then people making arguments are just trying to destroy the truth, and just like people who are just making wars are just trying to destroy the truth. Both of these are assuming, and this whole letter assumes that, okay, there was this Mamad Sinai, and Mamad Sinai, by the way, also in the philosophical interpretation, is just the knowledge of the truth. And therefore, everyone trying to make arguments is just here, just like Nebuchadnezzar. It's the same thing, just in a different way. We have the same kind of problems with them. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, and then they lose, and it's the same thing. That's really one of the big but I'm trying to clarify. One of his like rhetorical tactics here is to tell the Jews of Yemen that this is nothing new. This is part of how it was always, and it's the Nevi'as on this. The prophets already foresaw it, and everything. He's like telling you, don't take the arguments as arguments. This is not a philosophical fight. It's a fake fight. It's really a war. There is already the truth. You should just know that you're going to win. And the Rav Tzaddik literally uses this as like God promising you will find arguments to answer their arguments. Not only you're going to win by. And then he says something very interesting. So this is Adkan. This is all until there were these two people called Jesus and Muhammad. And after that, the whole new problem. He says after this, and this is like literally historical stories, at some point, he says, people figured out that we can do both of these things together. That says something very interesting. I think this is, again, he's giving like a historical, metaphysical, something framework. Because after there were these two groups, which there always were, there was the Amalek people and the Yevonim people. So the Rambam already has this. There was a third group of people. And this group decided they're going to use both of these tactics, both the fight, the sword, and both the arguments. And what did they do? How did he do this? He said like this, they're going to do it by doing this. And it's really, what he says is not really just the connecting the sword and the arguments. It's something that combines both. And I think that this is really his theory of what religion is. Because he says, that's me, but he says like this, that they decided they will pretend to, how do you say? To pretend to have prophecy, or to there's a way to translate this correctly. Okay, they're going to claim to have spoken to God, that God has spoken to them. And the Rambam says something very interesting about this. He says this is a suicide tactic. He says this is the most evil tactic ever invented. Again, this whole story is based like there is once that God actually spoke. Now, what does that really mean? Don't ask me, but that really once happened. And then people have been trying to destroy that forever either by killing you or by arguing against you. And then they realize they have a third way of doing it, which is killing you and arguing together. And that's going to be by claiming to be also someone that spoke to God. And the Rambam says this is a crazy, it's like a desperate tactic, just like some suicide. He says this literally. He says that the people that came up with this idea of having another revelation were suicide bombers. Why? And suicide bombers is a tactic of desperation. Like basically it wasn't working, the previous things weren't working, so they decided to just do the thing, I might lose two, but at least he'll lose two. Right? And he says why? Because he says that probably, and he doesn't speak this as clearly as I would like him to, but he seems to say if there's two revelations, then there's none. I really like this insight because I think he really feels that it ruined the concept of revelation. And it's like, obviously, once someone, like, any truth that's like, this is the problem of rhetoric that we discussed, like, any lie that you could say in the name of the truth, you could say in the name of the lie too, right? And he says, the moment there's whoever can, he said Jesus was the one that invented this first. And then he says, well, not Jesus, maybe Constantine, whoever it was, but Jesus invented this first. And he said, I'm also speaking. He says himself, he has this.
In Jewish history. We can't even figure out when he lived.
No, he looks about this. That's his next piece. But he said Jesus, they invented this idea. He's going to have another book. Now think about it. If there's another book, so there's no books. That's really how the Rambam.
The language says he looked in the Shemaim and said there's nothing else here. That one, that's the language here, right?
No, later when
he looked around and said there's nothing else. There's nothing else here.
No, about what?
No, Moshe Rabbeinu looked at the Shemaim and
later. That's later. Why we know there isn't? Because you're right. Because there's no.
But that's what.
Moshe,
but it's the same
right,
thing.
Right.
Twice.
Right. That's and that's his argument. So I'm not getting into the arguments of like why there's no two Torahs. It's language of Chazal. There's no Torah left in heaven. Like he's saying, because this is the real problem. Like you bring down the Torah from Shemaim, and in other words, you have a book, and you say this is God's book, right? And then tomorrow, well, it took some time. This is very interesting, actually, historically. Like the religions of the book, the people of the book, the first people of the book. Well, who knows when the people of the book were really invented? Probably in the Second Temple period. That Jews identify themselves like this, at least. I'm not saying when the book was written, just that we were the people with the revelation of the book. That's only after we stopped writing the book, right? Which is in Bas Shani. And pretty much right away, other people decided we also have a book, right? Or Sfarim Chatzonim is that, right?
Yeah.
And Jesus is one of the Sfarim Chatzonim. Like that's why the Christian Bible has the Sfarim Chatzonim in them, right? And this is like, and the Rambam says you're a suicide bomber because he's assuming the whole time. But this is the part which I don't think is like true, but like it's like framework. You know that there's one true book. But since you don't like it, you're going to say that there's another true book. Nobody's going to believe you. Because why would, once there's two, did God speak once or twice, or did he contradict himself? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So none of this is true.
As part of a mitzvah is l'nasis, the test with nothing. It means to prove that you don't really believe in the VAMs, basically. Right?
Okay.
He says that's the Messiah over there.
What, to test him too much?
He said, no. The one who says l'nasis, when Hashem sent the Navi Shek l'nasis, not to not test the Navi too much. That's a different one. When it says Hashem, the Pasuk says Hashem said to l'nasis eschem, a Navi Sheker.
No.
And you should kill him. Right? So he says because it's proving that you only believe a Navi for a good reason. Which is because it's not really every Navi.
He does something interesting. Yeah.
He says that's what the Messiah is.
I know what you mean. Okay. I don't know what's the.
I'm just trying to say is that you shouldn't really believe in the Vim. That's the.
Yeah, I understand. No, there could only be what because this is okay. I don't want to say secrets now. I want to say the Bush Tip Shot. The Bush Tip Shot is very simple. I mean, and it's amazing that a Jew says this. Like, the Bush Tip Shot is since God has two contradictory books, the reasonable response of any reasonable human being is that he has no books. Forget about, I was telling you why the Rambam, you're getting into why the Rambam would really think like this. Like, we usually think, no, there's one really book and the other one are forgeries. The Rambam also thinks that. He's saying this, they're forgeries. But once you have a forgery, like, what's to make the difference? He says later what's the difference. But the difference is not in the book, the difference is in the content. Right? But the book is... Now, okay, so this is the suicide tactic of having two books. Now, there's three books at least, right? And this Book of Mormon and who knows how many more books. Okay? Now, so then he says, and there's Jesus invented this, and he gives the whole thing of Daniel already discussing him, and he says he didn't hurt the Jews because we already realized that it's nonsense, but anyways, it didn't help us because he did hurt us in the end. And then there was another Meshiga, right? This is where he calls him the Meshiga, and he did the same thing, and he actually added something. I'm not. Maybe this is where the collaboration of these two first groups comes in, because it says that Muhammad, besides for following Jesus by pretending to have another book, also wanted to be a king, which is true. That part is historically true, but maybe that's when the religion and the killing comes together. Because, like you said, Jesus didn't really kill anyone. Later, he started killing, but
he was busy subverting power. Though.
Yeah, his thing was being killed. Yeah, his thing was being killed. Anyways, that was his whole thing. But Muhammad's thing wasn't being killed. His thing was killing others. Well, okay. Any case, no, it's much more Jewish. Jesus is much more Jewish being killed. It's very Yiddish. The whole, that's why there's Dara. I was reading her book, Dara, whatever her name is, wrote a book. People love dead Jews. Yeah. And it's basically
Horn.
Horn. And the basic theory is that this is Christianity. I don't know if because
the Minion of Tom Holland's another book about it.
Yeah. Because the whole idea is like there's one good Jew and he's dead, and his whole thing is to be dead. Anyways, and that's why they're looking for dead Jews like Anna Frank and whatever.
Because I actually
nice book.
I'm obsessed with this idea right now.
It's a nice book. I don't know. I don't remember if she ever actually says the Jesus thing, but it's like said like Anne Frank is the world's second most famous dead Jew. Anyways, Bekitz said that, but Muhammad's thing wasn't to be dead, right? You know whose thing was to be dead. By the way, that's why. What's his name? Ali, right? And Ali and his son. That's why the Shias are invented suicide bombing.
But they aren't dead.
What?
But they aren't dead.
They're into being dead, yeah. Part of their thing is to be dead.
Not all at once.
Later, it was copied by the Sunnis also somehow. Don't know how. But it was Khomeini that invented.
The Shias don't all want to try it at the same time.
Some of them might. Ahmadinejad was planning to kill all the whatever. Okay. Now,
If they all die on one day, then you can't.
You're masking. It's a good idea.
No, but you have to do it just enough that you can keep doing it, right?
I understand. Because you have to actually win.
The word is forever.
But maybe God will help. Maybe the Mahdi will come and save us, right? Anyways, Bekitzis, and he came and he decided, and then he tried to. And then here the Rambam says this thing that it's just like a statue; it's not a human being. So therefore, that's the big difference. In any case, and he goes into this whole shot of Daniel that Daniel is talking about Islam. And the kids in Hamas, I'm skipping this because that's not interesting to my thought about this framework. And therefore, he ends up saying that, listen, this is nothing new. Nebuchadnezzar tried this, and the Yevonim tried this, and Yaakov Avinu discussed this already in Ishaya, and we have this haftacha that we will never stop being an important nation. And just like there can't be stop being a god, this is one of the Rambam's most radical statements of belief in the Jewish people. And he brings a pasuk, Ani Hashem lo shenisi, v'atem ne'yak lo chelisem. And you'll remember that Ani Hashem lo shenisi is the Rambam's the philosophical, unchanging God, right? Who doesn't change, and therefore isn't physics. And this is and just like that, the Bnei Yaakov can't stop. Of course, they can have a lot of tzuras, but therefore, don't be afraid. And he has this whole theory of the Zera Yaakov and the Underdeg Lavasina. But this is all to say that there is a concept called being a Jew, and it's as true as there being a God. Almost as true, I don't know. And that's the same thing as me having a Torah. That's this number one. I don't know what it is. Geshem. This is a thought, and Rambam, he's giving chizuk to Jews, but he's saying I don't think he lied ever. He's trying to say something. And so there's two things. One is that he has the Jewish people and the Torah being the same thing almost, and he says clearly over here. I underlined it that, and this is also from Sadia, right? And the Rambam himself in Meir and another place where he talks about right this famous Sadigan thing that Enem Hasen Email B'Torah, which is really saying that the Torah is our way of surviving as a people, and therefore we both need to survive together. And that's like since there's this haftacha so-called that the Jewish people will survive. That's another way of saying the Torah will be forever. And again, because they see the threat, and they're going back to where they are, because they're all living in this place where the threat is something combining the arguments and the killings, right? In other words, this is like more of a framework of a way of cutting things up. Then it's like a history. It's like there's people that want to kill us. There's people, and us in the sense of the perfect society the Torah is. Right? There's people that want to kill us. There's other people that want to convince us. And there's a third category of people that want to do both at the same time. And those are the religious people. Those are the people that have a contrary religion. So he doesn't see either Sisra or the Yevonim as having a contrary religion to us. Why? Because they don't claim revelation. Which is, again, for the past, is a true, whatever, it's at some point it's true. There's only this concept, and this is true. Like again, the concept of two people claiming revelation is a new idea. This like religion, there's other religious fights, and there's different ways. Like I said, there's the old-fashioned, the primitive way of having a religious war. But after that, it's like in some sense, at least if you think of these religions, and in some sense, this is really true. Like at some point, it's like the nuclear bomb. At some point, America invented the nuclear weapon, and then they could win all the wars for like 5 minutes because they're the only one that has it. And very quickly, people figured out to have the same one. And the same way, at some point we figured out this revelation, this people of the book, which was a great meme. It really worked, and the whole world was going to become Jewish because we're the only ones that have God's book.
It was working.
That's what the Cheshbonem's plan was.
It was doing a great job by Shady.
Yeah, it was working. It was a serious thing. And then people co-opted it. They said, you know what, we have a different, like 5 minutes later. I mean, not so fast, not so long, like after, for various reasons. But
so much so that Rishonim learned the VM or talk about that 5 minutes.
yeah, but if you realize, it's interesting to note, like this is the first mover advantage. If we would have actually won that like people say, like if the United States would have actually nuked the Soviet Union, they could have won the Cold War. But 5 minutes later, it was too late because they have at least they claim to have, like here it's like they claim to have a nuke, but maybe they.
All you need to say you have.
But that's the problem. Exactly, nobody knows if anyone has nukes, right? Nobody knows. Maybe everyone is just saying. And also nobody knows if anyone has revelation. This is the secret, right? Because there's lots of things, like the Ram tries to put Hasina out of this picture. Like, we do know we have revelation, which is another way of saying that we're not really revelation, right? That's the secret. But without the secret, in reality, there's no way of really knowing. And the Rambam, this is why I'm saying that the thing that he said that this is suicide is a very beautiful thing, because it's telling you that, yeah, I know that he has this story. This Muhammad Hasina is his solution to this, but come on, did this convince anyone ever? It convinces the Jews, but it doesn't convince anyone else. And mostly because it's an argument, it's another argument. You can make, I don't even think if it's true or not. You can make arguments against it, so what? It's not interesting. This whole concept of revelation only worked for as long as nobody else thought of it. And of course, why shouldn't someone think of it? Maybe because, they thought, it's not true, so Sidla. And also, by the way, the fact that he says here that this is intentionality here, that it's overrated, right? He said, I'm so late. He says that Muhammad was just an inventor, and it's not really, he doesn't really think that, right? He thinks that he really thought that he was a prophet. Right? That's more complicated than the way he says it here.
I don't think Jesus even thought he was a prophet.
Whatever it is, we're worried about Muhammad in this book anyways. Jesus is just a hachatimtza of hacking on Muhammad.
Right.
And Muhammad really thought he was a prophet. At least the Rambam thinks that in other places. Nobody knows what people really think in their heart. But this theory of him sitting there, he wasn't L. Ron Hubbard, L. Ron Hubbard was the one guy that we know that was pretending. Yeah. At least according to one of his friends. Nobody knows. Maybe that guy's a liar.
Most people are not mustache.
And even that is more complicated.
Not twisting the mustache. That's like
right.
They're not the.
Only Hubbard.
He's the scientist.
Scientology, yeah. And there's a Edus that he told the guy, and I think the best business is a religion. Why not to create a religion? So the point is that this was a great piece of rhetoric, this book, great piece of thing. In other words, it's a great sword, right? It's a great thing that works in this world, but it only worked once, and now we're stuck, sort of. Now we're back to... But in any case, it seems to me, and this whole framework must be based on the Rambam's famous framework of Moshe and Avram, right? Which is Moshe, where Avram is the convincer person, and Moshe is the warrior person plus convincer person, right? In other words, he sees religion as this thing that's trying to do.
Avram never convinced anyone to Nevu ever.
Never claimed prophecy.
Even his own son
right. He was not a shliach, not Rasul. Was not a shliach. Was not claimed to be sent by God. They only spoke in the name of God in the sense of saying the truth. Vayikra b'shem Hashem. What?
Because it would be a terrible argument. He shouldn't believe in
Well, Moshe did it again.
I'm saying, but his argument is that there's a difference in Moshe. But Avram, why would someone believe him? Why would he believe him?
Right, but now you see it how Muhammad is the anti-Moshe, not the anti-Avram, right? Aristotle, or whoever he's thinking, it's very weird for me to think that he's thinking of Aristotle, but he is the anti-Avram, right? And what's Tisra anti? I'm not sure. The pure war person. That's like just... Yeah, something like that. He's like anti the old-fashioned, like I said, the old really goes back to the old theory of God. He's like anti, does the Rambam have like a category like that? Shimshon, people like the first level of Nevuah, I don't know, like something like that. Yeah. And Muhammad is anti-Moshe, which, that's what he's saying. Just that ours is the true religion, and but the true religion, right? Not the true. And that's the problem that he's worried over here. And it's interestingly when he goes, and that's very important, right? When he has this thing with Sinai, which we saw himself, and then when he goes on to talk about their book, he doesn't say, but their book is not from Sinai, which we saw himself. What he goes on to say is that it's a difference between a statue and a living person. In other words, our Torah is really the perfect society, which gives people two perfections. There's like the most clear philosophical formulation in a book that's definitely not for philosophers. And the Muslim one isn't, because nobody over there has the two perfections. Again, go and check, who knows. But that's his thing. So that's, I think, the framework that he has here. And according to this framework, we have to think of like which ones are the words of, like the words of God are definitely
So what's the answer to the original question about the
I don't have an answer to the question.
So
Just
how is
this is talking about that question.
Waiting for me in the house.
Huh?
I'm still waiting for me in the
Oh,
house.
okay. This is not answering the question. This is the informing the question. The answer is something like that. The words of the Milchamas Hashem that the Jewish king is supposed to do is really doing the same exact thing as Muhammad was doing. Just with again, like last week's problem, just with the truth behind him somehow. And this promise, I really wonder what he really thought about this promise. Like, what do I think? I don't know. Like, what is this promise all about? Like, what is this like? It says in the Torah, like, okay. And it says in the other Torah, like, what is it supposed to mean? Of course, it's a good thing to say. But what is it supposed to mean? And it must mean something like that. I don't know if it means anything. It's something like you said before. Like since this starts with the truth, there's some kind of sense of the truth always being accessible to humans in some way. Although you could be in very dark ages, like the Rambam thinks that he's living in a very dark age. And there could be Jaliyad, you could live in a dark age where nobody knows about God, but there's going to be one guy, I don't know. It seems to be very...
That's why it's so hard
what is this proof?
What's the practice?
What
is
this
the Jews themselves
promise?
are so bad at being Jews so often. You know, like, that's
Well,
the problem,
but
right?
again...
Like, that's the problem. Like I'm saying, sometimes the Jews, people who are destroying Jews might be better at being Jews than
So he can't say that. I also think that we should not say things like that. No.
You think he doesn't think that?
You could say this with Musar. I don't think it's true. I don't actually think so. No.
You don't think he thinks that? Does anyone agree with him alive now? I'm saying he has a big influence, but only as much as he like influence, not an actual argument.
What do you mean?
But the Ram's idea of what truth is, do most Jews believe that or not? And only in as much as he likes.
Well, you would say something. No,
right?
you would say no. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think he would, because that makes him very not sincere. You have to say something like, no, this is the best. This is the best. This is the best. And again, you could say, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Like you could say, everyone is a partisan of their own people, and that's all. Okay, that's a good thing. It's fine. But what does that consist of? It consists of thinking that this is the people which, even after them being pretty bad at doing that, have the best starting conditions for actually getting there. He seems to sincerely...
I'm just saying practically, day to day, when you're looking at why they're losing this war, that's a lot of the time it's like, yeah, because they're not.
No, but then why? But then how is this?
That exists within them, but they don't actually. They're not most of them have.
Like it's very hard to think. Like what is someone like? Imagine. He's going to these people in time, and he knows that already now. I don't know what the percentages are or the numbers are. Right? There are some serious percentage that are just becoming Muslims. There probably was a large percent over. And there's some others that are trying, with their teeth to stay Jewish. And he tries to put this whole metaphysics of the correct Torah onto these people and saying, you're fighting the good fight. You're the ones that were spoken about by Har Sinai. Forget about those other ones. They were not referred to. It's not them. They were learned on Har Sinai. Don't worry. Don't get lost. Don't be fazed by the fact that the world is not working with you because they're the wrong. It's not that. And he's trying to raise these people to that. And like, what should he have said? Like, should he have said, go become Muslims? Because what? He doesn't think that they're so great, right? They're obviously not so great. Why are they not so great? I don't know.
Muslims?
Yeah. Figure out they're not achieving any perfection.
At least their ideal is not great. If you would get at the ideal Muslim, you would think you don't get to the greatest.
You know the question, like that the Rambam stole all these ideas from Muslim thinkers.
Okay.
So like Al-Farabi definitely thought whatever Rambam thought for Yiddishkeit, Al-Farabi thought for Islam.
Right.
Both of them had nothing to do with what the reality.
Right.
Was the Rambam closer? Who knows?
I don't know what this author have a big impact on the current thing with Muslims, because the Rambam does.
Maybe, okay.
That God doesn't have a goof. He's very incredible. Everyone's like, this is the whole thing. Like, everyone's like, what about the common folk? They think Hashem has a goof. You're going to say they don't go ahead of him? The Rambam's like, no, I have better, more faith in them. And you know what?
I understand,
right.
but maybe, so yeah, that's the thing. I don't know.
Definitely had a lot of impact that people don't even realize.
I agree with that. I mean, we also have yeah, but okay. So then you're back to just saying that it's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that's the story. I just like this three-part and how religion is both of them together, and it seems to think that the true religion is also both of them together, and that's why there's such a serious conflict between them. Because they're fighting on the same right. Because that's why it's a suicide pact. Like only one of us, or maybe even none of us, could survive this, and the Rambam really thinks that none of us could survive it. Right? Only the truth could survive. Right. And in this sense, that would be a crazy thing to say, but in that sense, like religious wars are laws of. Religious, in the sense of revealed religious wars, are wars of God in the sense that both of them will be destroyed. And I had a theory about the Dasa Emes being a third religion. But the Rambam doesn't say words like this ever, but maybe that's still true. That Mashiach, the true Mashiach is a third religion. And it's not either of these things. Because like he says, both of the once there's two, none of them can really work or can really be believed. I don't know. That's why I had a theory that the Rambam only uses the terminology Dasa Emes when he talks about Mashiach. Or something like he talks about B'tzias Mitzrayim, which is like trying to be Mashiach and things like that. But those words are, I wrote it, I counted. Yeah, I counted it. It never says Dasa Emes before Mashiach comes. And like, in other words, the true religion is not us, not our true religion. Our religion is better at getting, it must be better at getting there. Otherwise, there's no use. It's a better way to get to the true religion, which is, and again, true religion.
Well, isn't that religion? That is what religion is.
No, true religion is just another way for saying, like what he quotes from Yeshaya in the end of V'yachzor kulam das emes. That's what it says in the end of Shlokas Melachim. All the people being good people, having the society set up correctly. That's what. Religion doesn't mean the book, right? It means the whole point of religion is that it's not a book. Books we have various times, and therefore we don't have a religion at all. I mean, we have 5 people, but that's not. And you mostly have a book and not a religion in some sense. And the Rambam probably, and it's very, it's always like a practical question, but the Rambam, like what he's doing here is writing a book, right? He's not fighting a war. And he's even against the guy that's trying to fight a war because he thinks that guy's not smart enough. Like he didn't read enough books, so he should be able to get to the next stage of fighting the war. So, and maybe is like pushing off this Mashiach is something like, let's first learn more books. I don't know. Maybe not. Anyways, that's my thing.